Well, look, we're getting off topic here a little bit.
There's always time to hate Avatar.
Sure. But sorry, any Avatar fans. But
I'm not.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Flux.
I'm Ben McKenzie.
Welcome to Pratt Chat, the monthly Terry Pratchett Book Club podcast.
Each month, we usually discuss one of Terry Pratchett's books or short stories with a special guest.
This month, we're not doing that. We're playing the board game Discworld Ankh-Morpork, and I haven't got a pun ready. I'm sorry, because I'm still so excited that I finally won a board game.
Our returning guest is comedian and quizmaster Richard McKenzie. Welcome, Richard.
Hello. Thank you for having me back.
It's been a long time. Like you're a third-time guest now, which puts you into our sort of, I guess, our Hall of Fame.
I'll take that. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Although I don't, it occurred to me that I haven't told you this, but your first episode no longer appears on Spotify.
What?
Because if you remember, we played a little bit of a song from one of the official Discworld album.
Oh, yeah.
And we listened to it. And Spotify decided this was a copyright violation and took the episode down with so little notice I didn't have any time to do anything about it.
That's
So
rude.
Is it gone forever?
Only from Spotify.
Oh, okay.
It still exists. But I am going to edit that bit out so that it hopefully doesn't happen on any other platform. So if you have been looking for our episode about pyramids, you will not find it on Spotify, but you can find it on our website and on other podcast platforms.
Really good. Yeah, Liz and I were just talking about that when we walked down to get sandwiches. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, we had jelly babies. I remember. I got them freshly.
We did. Yeah. That was a long recording.
It was a long book.
It was a lot of fun. And now we're back. We're back to have some more fun for your third time on the show. Not reading a book, but playing a game.
Thank goodness.
I know.
All this nerdy reading. Give me some dice to roll.
Yeah, I had to do maths this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That did happen. That's all right. I mean, Richie, you're a big game nerd.
Yeah, definitely.
Board games aren't your big thing, though, are they?
No, I've got a few of them at home, ones that I really like.
Yeah.
But definitely I'm more, World of Warcraft, video game or Dungeons and Dragons or Warhammer 40,000, tabletop games, that sort of stuff.
Yeah. What board games do you have at home?
I've got Ticket to Ride, which
great.
I
Classic.
thoroughly enjoy.
Love it.
Gloom.
Oh, Gloom is great.
Gloom is fun. I do like those co-op games where you're all having fun, pushing the story forward whilst doing terrible things to your opponents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and Gloom ticks all those boxes.
It does.
And then I've still got a game that I still have to play, Big Trouble in Little China.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so my brother got me that ages ago for my birthday. And I went online to look at the How to Play on YouTube. And the How to Play is 2.5 hours long. And I went, I'll get to that.
That seems unnecessary.
But it's great. You start playing on the board, and then when you go to hell, the board flips over, and it's an entire new game on the other side of the board game.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's very cool.
I did hear good things about it at the time, but I've not played it, so I don't know.
Looks great. The figurines are amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a 2.5 hour How to Play video, that seems like that video that you're always telling everyone to watch.
I can't think what video you possibly could. It couldn't be the board game video from Auntie Donna.
Yeah, I think it might be the one that comes up every time we play a board game on the show. But that's okay. It's a very funny sketch.
And accurate.
We've posted it previously. But look, today though, we are playing a board game. We have played Discworld Ankh-Morpork, designed by Martin Wallace, released in 2011. We played it twice today. We had so much fun playing it once. We thought, let's do it again.
I'd play it a third time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But let's begin with a reading of the blurb, by which I mean what's written on the back of the box. And on this box, this is actually the original standard edition from Tree Frog Games in 2011. So it's mostly text on the back of the box. There's quite a bit to read, but I'll do my best.
No nerdy reading after all.
Welcome to Ankh-Morpork, the oldest, greatest, and most odorous city on Terry Pratchett's Discworld, a place where trouble is always on the cards. Be one of 7 personalities vying for ultimate control of this proud and pestilent city, using your cunning and guile to complete your secret agenda. Along the way, you'll encounter wizards, assassins, watchmen, and thieves, all of whom will affect your fortunes and continually change the fate of this mercantile metropolis. Now, there's actually another 3 paragraphs, which I don't think I need to read all of. But it's a very detailed description of how the game works. Maybe I should read it out. It'll give you a good idea at home, listener. It says, each visit to Ankh-Morpork promises a unique player experience, combining rich visual stylings and multifaceted gameplay. I feel like visual stylings is a warning that someone who wrote this likes words too much.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a board game without visual stylings?
Yes.
I asked the wrong person. Can you picture I'm now looking at Richard. Can you picture a board game with no visual stylings?
I cannot.
It's look, it is a tricky business, but it's possible.
Is the guy who wrote the back of this being paid by the word?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of words here. But anyway, it gives you a pretty decent description of how the game works, which we'll talk about, so I'll skip over that. But it also says, Ankh-Morpork blends the distinctive humour of Terry Pratchett's best-selling novels with strategic challenge and a dose of mayhem into one devilishly addictive Discworld adventure for 2 to 4 players. Suitable for all the family. You don't have to be a Discworld fan to play this game, but you might end up as one. And then it bigs up Martin Wallace, designed by internationally renowned games designer Martin Wallace and a dedicated team of artists overseen by the Discworld Emporium. And then it gives you a description of what's in the box. So I'll skip that as well. But I feel like that gives you a pretty good idea of what you're in for.
Yeah.
And we played it. I mean, when you set it up, the board is a map of Ankh-Morpork. We talked about this actually when we set it up, Richard. You were asking, is this like legit? Is this the real Ankh-Morpork
Yeah, is
map?
it the canon layout of the actual city?
I think, I've got a couple of other maps of Ankh-Morpork, and I think they don't entirely agree, but it's broadly the same.
Yeah.
Like the river going through it, the position of the really major landmarks is all the same, but I think maybe where they've put the regions and how they've named them is maybe fudged a bit for purposes of making it work as a game.
It looks like a glomerulus, which are like the things in the kidney that process blood and turn it into
What?
tea.
Does it?
Yeah. I'll find you a picture of a glomerulus. We can put it in the show notes.
We'll put it in the episode notes for listener. Yeah, you'll be able to see that.
But fairly warned, I think a lot of things look like a glomerulus, but also fair enough, they do.
Yeah, okay. Yep, fair enough. I didn't think of that, but I guess it seems appropriate somehow that Ankh-Morpork is an organ that turns things into urine. I mean, that's probably, I'm sure there's a description of it in the book, something like that. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Yeah, because it's got the filtration system going through, which is the Ankh as well.
Yeah. But yeah, to give you a brief overview of how the game works, we'll get into the details as we discuss it. But yes, you do get a secret role card. There are 7 different personalities, and the premise of the game is that Vetinari's gone missing and you're vying for control of the city. But your secret personality has a secret way of winning the game, and you're trying to achieve that goal. If you achieve that goal and it's the start of your turn, you instantly win. So everyone's trying to figure out who is everyone else and what are they trying to do.
Yeah, everyone's trying to do that.
So we can stop them. And sometimes you figure it out, but it's too late to stop them, which is, I think, what happened in both of our games.
Like Liz, you just assume that everyone is every type of character every turn.
That's true.
Look what they're doing. There must be this character.
I was eventually right.
Yeah.
Sort of.
You couldn't really fail with that sort of prediction, could you? Yeah. But then the actual gameplay is very simple. There's a big deck of cards, which all represent different characters or things or organizations from Ankh-Morpork in the books. And they have text on them and little icons. And on your turn, you play one and you do what it says on the card. And the things at the top are these little icons that have the sort of standard game actions, which are things like putting minions out on the board, building a building in a particular region. There's assassinating somebody. There's getting money from the bank. There's getting rid of trouble, which we'll talk about. And there's a couple of special ones, or more than a couple of special ones. There's one that you're not allowed to skip, which is a special event occurs. That's a separate deck of cards, a smaller deck that doesn't come up that often, which is good because that means it's a surprise when they come up. There's also the option to play another card. So if you have a card that lets you play another card, you might play several cards on your turn. And there's also an interrupt, which is if somebody's doing something to you, you can play this card when it's not your turn to stop them. So those are all the sorts of things that you do, but it's all written on the cards, either as little icons, or most of them also have a special unique thing that they do, and it has the instructions on the card of what you do. So you play the card, you do what it says, and by doing that, you're placing your little minions out on the board, which might help you with your win condition. You're building buildings, which might also help you with your win condition. and you're placing and removing trouble on the board and doing all these other things. And then you either win, or when that big deck of cards runs out, you don't shuffle it and start again. That's the end of the game. And you then score some points to see who wins. Unless you're Commander Vimes, in which case you just immediately win because you're just stalling for time, which is a pretty Commander Vimes thing to do, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Should we say who we were in our 2 games? We'll start with the first game. Who were we all?
Well, I started out as Commander Vimes.
Yes.
So it was a lot of me sort of doing random things.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a way to win unless we got rid of all the cards.
You're just trying to stop other people from winning long enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good because it means you're keeping an eye on the game, actually. So that makes sense for the character.
I think it was a good one to start with as well. Just to go, all right, I can just sit back and I can see how this is all playing out because I don't have any stress on me trying to get to a point to win the game.
Yeah.
I was just going, I'll like to say, stall it out. So eventually, hopefully, we'll get through all the cards and I'll just win by doing nothing.
Yeah, and thwarting other people's attempts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's fair enough. And Liz, who are you?
I was Cryopraise.
Chrysoprase.
Chrysoprase. Yeah, Chrysoprase.
I think that's how you say it.
I was trying to remember where the R's go.
Yes, the troll head of the Brachia, the troll organized crime organization.
And the way that he wins is he has to get $50 either in cash or in buildings. So it's cumulatively. Once he's at $50, then he wins.
Yes. And I can't. Did we guess that's who you were in the first game? I can't remember if we did. I don't know if we
I
tweaked.
don't think we guessed it
I don't
on the
think we
first
did.
game.
No.
Yeah, but in the second game,
Well, I was the same character in the second game, and you guessed it, but then you couldn't do anything about it.
no, because I saw you getting up to like $30-something, and I'm like, oh, hang on a minute. And then, you got to 50, and I was like, I can't do anything about this. Richard, can you do anything? She's
No, I couldn't do
clearly
anything about it.
Yeah, no, nothing could be done. Well, in the first game, I was Lord de Word, and then in the second game, I was Lord Rust. And there's 3 lords, and they actually all have the same win condition, which I think is a smart design choice because hopefully, particularly if you're playing with 4 players, you're pretty likely to get at least 2 of them. And that means you've got 2 players trying to do the same thing. And the thing that they want to do is control a certain number of areas of the board. And controlling an area of the board means you have more pieces in it of your color than any other player has of their color. Easy to do for 1 or 2 places, but placing minions out on the board is one of the main things that you do with your cards. So there's constantly minions like popping up and moving around, and yeah, it's all happening all the time.
And you've only got a certain amount of minions as well, so you've got to be careful where you're placing them.
Yeah, that's right. It was tricky, but I did manage to win that first game.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty quick game. That first game, I think we only played for about 35 minutes.
How it tricked us into playing a second one.
Yeah. And that second game went a lot longer. So we've said who we were in the second game.
Oh, yeah.
And you won the second game, Liz. Chrysoprase with your $50. Who are you in the second game, Richard?
In the second game, I was Dragon King of Arms.
Oh, yes.
And so basically, what I was trying to do was, so whenever you place a minion into an area where there's another minion, those 2 minions have trouble.
They do.
There's trouble between
They're
them.
causing trouble
They
in
cause
the
trouble,
streets.
and there's they put a counter onto that area. And my win condition is if there are 8 spots of trouble anywhere on the board at the start of my turn, I instantly win.
Yeah. And you were getting very close.
Yeah.
There were 7.
It got to your turn a couple of turns before Liz won, and I noticed that there were 7 on the board, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, I've got to keep an eye on this. And then you played that card that let you put down a minion without causing trouble.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's not Richard then, because why would you do that?
Why would you do that? Why would you sabotage your own win condition?
Yeah.
And you know why? Because I had no cards in my hand that did anything else. And I went, I'll place this guy down here, in a space where no one else was.
So then if you do it again.
So if I can move a place in there, I'll make some trouble.
Yeah. And the trouble markers, these like nice. I should talk about the components of the game. It's got a very sort of Eurogamey kind of feel to the components because they're all nice little wooden markers. The minions are these sort of little head and shoulders, like sort of silhouettes without a lot of detail, but they're clearly a person from the shoulders up in the player colors. And then the buildings are these sort of big, tall, chunky buildings. And then the trouble markers are little black discs. They're quite chunky as well. And then there's also some other markers that we didn't get to use as much, but there's 3 little trolls who are like the minions, but they're bigger. And then there's 4 demons, which look like kind of like a head with horns on it.
Yeah.
And they're orange. We didn't get to use those at all in our games, but they come out with some of the special events and they count as a minion, but they're not under the control of any particular player. Yeah.
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 But yeah, you got close. You got very close.
Well, so it was on.
It was on 7.
So Liz was going to immediately win.
Yeah.
At the start of her turn, and I was the last one before her turn.
Yeah.
And so there were 7 counters on the board, and I needed 8 at the start of my turn. And with all the things that I did, I brought it up to 10, but that didn't matter because it was on the end of my turn.
You had to come back round to your turn. Yeah.
So if it had come back round,
it would have been fine.
Yeah.
But we couldn't find a way to get any of Liz's money.
So I looked it up in real estate.
Yes. Yeah, very smart of you. Unfortunately, just like the real world. But yes, but it does
some negativity, like negative gearing.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
but it doesn't appreciate. Like, it's not worth more money when you've bought the property.
I was trying to do a pun about your negativity and it didn't work.
Excuse me, I was not negative at all. No, and I think it's an interesting game because there's a bit of depth to it, but also you're very constrained by what cards you get.
yes.
And in that second game, Richard, I don't think you played both of them, but you played one of them.
No, I played both of them.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
So there's these 2 cards. There's one that's the Fool's Guild and there's one that's Dr. Whiteface. And they both do the same thing, which is that you give them to another player when you play them. And that player has to give you $5 or they're stuck with that card. But unfortunately, what that means is the way you get more cards is you either play a card that has the power that lets you draw more cards. There's not heaps of those. But normally what happens is when you play cards at the end of your turn, if you have fewer than 5 cards, you draw back up to 5 cards. But Dr. Whiteface or the Fool's Guild, I guess they're just wasting time or doing something stupidly amusing, but they stay there as if they're one of your cards. So you always have 1 fewer card. So you only draw back up to 4.
And it says that there's no way to get it out of your hand.
You can't get rid of them,
And Richard's strategy for making both of us have those was to wait till we didn't have enough money to pay him and then be like, and now you've got this card.
Ben had 3 and you had 4, and I just went, well, there's no way you can pay it, so you must take this card.
It's very effective.
Whereas when
strategy.
I had it last round, I was like, oh, well, if they don't have enough money, I obviously can't play this. I was like, oh, no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Now
so
I've learned.
That did slow us down quite a bit. Although it didn't slow
me down
too much. Well, you had some of the cards that let you draw more cards.
Yeah, and I had even more of them in my hand as well. So I was very fortunate that round with the cards that I got. I don't think that one impacted me at all in the end.
Yeah. And that second game
Other than psychologically.
Yeah. That second game went for a lot longer, but it didn't feel long.
No. It's very pacey.
Yeah, I think because it's one of those games, a bit like Ticket to Ride actually, where when it's your turn, you just pick one of the cards you've got and you play it. And you might get to play another one if the card lets you, but not all of them do. So you might just do that one card and then you do the things that are on the card, then your turn's over. And so it's pretty quick and the turns come around pretty quickly. You're not sort of sitting around waiting for too long.
Well, yeah, it's the absolute opposite of Magic the Gathering, where the first turn or the second turn around goes and so you go, oh, this is going nice and quickly. But then as the cards build up on the board, and suddenly your turn goes from like a 30-second sort of, I play this card and then we move on to the next one. Suddenly your turn starts going for 5 minutes, 10 minutes as you're trying to figure out what every single card on the board does and how it interacts with the cards that you just put down. And people are sitting there, especially if you're playing a 3 or 4 person game, you're sitting there going, oh, I can just go and make lunch and before it gets back to my turn.
Yeah, I play a bit of Magic these days and my frog deck on a good turn can be like that. Not always, not often, but it's got a lot of effects where the frogs like sort of jump off the board back into your hand and then go back onto the board in order to do something. And if it's late in the game, if I built up a lot of frogs, sometimes that can go for a long time.
Yeah.
Which is very annoying. So I try not to do it unless I really need to win. But yeah, I know what you mean. But there wasn't a lot of that.
No. It's a relatively quick game.
Yeah, and I think there's a good balance of cards in the deck that you can use to stop someone else doing something. Like Gaspode saves someone from being assassinated. There's a couple of cards that when someone's going to be killed, a minion, it doesn't save them. They don't just stay there, but they pop up somewhere else. Like one of them is Red Shoe or the Quick Start Club. So they clearly come back as a zombie. The Igor card does the same thing. So they've been saved from near death. Yeah. I think one of the other things that paces it really well is that the deck of those cards has 2 halves. So there's like, they're otherwise the same, but there's ones with a green border and ones with a brown border. And you shuffle them separately, but then you combine them into one deck. But the green ones go on top. And so the green ones are a little bit less nasty.
They're a bit vanilla.
Maybe not quite as powerful. But so if the game goes on long enough, then suddenly the power level of the cards you're drawing ramps up and they do more powerful things. Like they get you more money or there's more opportunities to build buildings than there were before, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I was only drawing like one card a turn. So I didn't get through many of those, but that's all right. It was still good. It was fun. Yeah, how do you feel about, I think one of the interesting things about this game is that, again, you're very constrained by what cards you've got in your hand. Mm-hmm. And in that second game, I really felt like there's not really much I can do. Like, I've got none of the cards with the little actions on it that I need to do, and I don't really have any way to get rid of these and get more. So
I felt mean in that second game.
Yeah.
Giving that card to you and then to Liz as well. I just went, I know there's only 2 of these cards in the game and I've picked both of them up and I'm going to use them in a mean way. In the way that they're designed to be used.
It's fine.
But, it definitely just felt like I was going, don't do this, but I've got to get this out of my hand somehow. Yeah. I don't want to have it sitting here doing nothing.
Yeah. No, I think it's good. And I think, look, my feeling was the game is a lot of fun, particularly when you haven't played it a lot. And I've played it before, but not very many times. I was not worried about that. Like, that's kind of part of this game. And I knew it's not like I'm going to be sitting there for 3 hours and can't do anything. Like, the game's going to end and I'm still going to get to draw and see and play some more cards with Discworld characters on them. We should talk about that. How does it feel, like, as a Discworld game? Does it feel Discworldy to you?
I really thought that it was on point. Mm-hmm. Like, there were a lot of cards where you play as Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler or whatever, or Gaspode, and it felt like it was, themed well around each character or place or, maybe a spell or something that had happened in the books.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just incidental nice art on a card that would happen irrespective of what was drawn on it.
Yeah. Yeah, they've done a really great job of matching what the card does to who the character is. And often that's something quite simple.
Yeah. Like, I went and looked through a bunch of the cards that we didn't get to, and one was the luggage. And one of the things it says is just eat a minion.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, cool. Of course. That's exactly what it does.
Yeah, great.
It just eats one of your opponent's minions. There, it's gone.
That's perfect. Yeah.
I love that.
And there's so many of the cards that you get to see a lot of the characters. That's really nice art as well.
Beautifully done.
It's been done by a few different artists. Like I read out on the blurb on the back there. The main artist, I think, is Peter Dennis, but also Paul Kidby's art. Some of Paul Kidby's art is in there. I'm not sure which of his art is there. It might be his picture of Greater Tuin that's on the standard box. There's another artist named Ian Mitchell who worked on it. And, of course, Bernard Pearson from the Discworld Emporium was the one who sort of coordinated all of this together. But they all come together nicely. And as I talked about many times on the podcast, I always love to see a new and different take on the characters.
Yeah.
As much as I love the Paul Kidby illustrations, it's just nice to see someone else have a go at what they look like. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I came across any cards that other people were playing or that I had in my hand. And I just went, looks like they phoned that in.
Yeah, no.
It looks great.
It does look great.
I'd be happy to have any of these on my wall.
Yeah.
Except for maybe like the Sonky shop, but that's for other reasons.
Which is a great card because what does it do? It protects you against the powers of another card. Of course it does. Great stuff. We've managed to conflate 2 cards together here. The Shonky Shop is a card representing the second-hand shop seen in Nightwatch. It allows you to discard cards from your hand and get $1 for each one you discard. The Harry King card does the same, only he gets a better deal of $2 per card. The card that protects you from the rules text on another card, though not the effect of its action icons, is Wallace Sonky, inventor of Pannier Packet preventatives, and appropriately enough, a murder victim in the book Richard was last here to discuss, The Fifth Elephant.
I also like that it's sorted into like regions or like places as well, and so you can build a house or put a building on that, and when you do, you get a card for that one, and it gives you a different ability as well, so it depends on which one it is. So sometimes it allows you to discard a card for money or get more coins each turn. It's good. Adds an extra level of getting money to win.
Yeah. I've not quite played another game like it. It's got a lot of familiar elements to board games. Like, it's got some familiar mechanisms, like there's area control, which is, what you're trying to do as one of the lords. There's hidden roles. There's a little bit of like mystery about what people are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
I get the feeling that if it would be a difficult game to win if you were playing with someone who's played it a lot more than you, because they would be much quicker to spot what you were probably trying to do, and you wouldn't necessarily know how to misdirect them yet.
Yeah. Also, I feel like to that point, if you play it a lot, and just having done the 2 games today, I could already see if we were to play a third game, I know exactly my first couple of moves, what they would be.
Yeah, right.
Now, having seen how it plays out, going, I know which area I would go to try and take first.
Yeah.
I know now which area has a special card when you get control of it, gives you the most bonus and bang for your buck early on.
Yeah.
For example, your one, Liz, when you were getting $2 every turn, and that just happened automatically. You didn't have to worry about that. And people were stealing money from you, or at least trying to. And you go, doesn't matter. I get free money at the start of every turn.
Yeah.
And didn't have to worry about trying to draw a card to get into that sort of thing.
And I completely agree, because I got 2 shots of the same character. I went for the same thing that time. I was like, that's helped me last time. And I was like, so yeah, it's like this one region that's like right next to one of the places you start. So I was like, well, they're going to come for me. They're going to try to buy it before me. And they didn't. So I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I would have gone for that straight away. If I went, oh, of course, yeah, that gives you that card. And it's just a free bonus every time. Whereas I picked one which, when I was trying to make trouble on the board, and my area that I took over said, hey, at every turn, just take a trouble off the board. And I go, no, I don't want to do that. I want to make trouble. And I just didn't think about that. But yeah.
Yeah. It's a light enough game that it doesn't take too long to learn, but there's enough going on that it's quite exciting. And I think, it wasn't a surprise to me that we wanted to play it again, because I remember the first time I played it, I played another friend's copy. We sat down, and the 3 of us, I think we played it like 3 or 4 times in a row. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty quick. It's fun. Let's give it a go. I want to see some more of these cards and see what they do.
Yeah, that's the one thing, though, that I was sad about, that we didn't see a lot of the cards.
Yeah, that's true.
Because of the way it's stacked with like the
you see the green ones,
the
all the
easy
time.
ones, and then the harder ones that you draw into. The only thing I really would have liked to have seen was ways to mill cards off the top of the deck that you're drawing from straight into the discard pile.
Yeah.
So like nobody gets a go at these cards.
Yeah.
And especially if you're Commander Vimes, you're trying to get through the deck as quick as possible.
Yeah.
So you can try and just throw 5 cards away.
Yeah.
That no one gets to ever go at.
Yeah, I don't think I certainly didn't see any cards that did that. Yeah.
I mean, there might have been one towards the bottom that does
Maybe.
something crazy like that.
Yeah.
But I would have liked to have seen a few more of that, just to give Vimes a better chance. And to be honest, I would have liked to have seen just one or maybe less of the lords.
Yeah.
They're all doing the same thing. And maybe 1 or 2 characters that do another different thing.
Yeah.
Because I can see if you play it a bunch of times, especially
You get very familiar with them.
get familiar with it, or like Liz, you'll have the same character twice.
Yeah. Interestingly, so this game's no longer in print. Went out of print in about 2015 because Tree Frog Games no longer had the license to make Discworld games. Also made their other Discworld game, The Witches, also went out of print, also designed by Martin Wallace. And he had another game in development that wasn't finished yet, which was themed around the Discworld gods, which didn't get finished, didn't get published. But it also meant that a few years after that, another publisher has made a new version of this game, but with none of the Discworld stuff. So it's called Nanty Narking, which is a slang term from Victorian times, which supposedly means having a lot of fun, maybe even too much fun. And so it's got this Victorian London theme where all of the Discworld characters and places are replaced by Victorian London and fictional and real characters from Victorian London. So you got, instead of like playing as Veterinarian Commander Vimes and Dragon Lord of Arms, you're playing as like Sherlock Holmes and Moriarty. And I think Fagin is one of the characters as well. Like there's
What a great universe to smash together.
I know. Well, it's so popular because there's so much popular fiction, and because we're so distant from it now, a lot of it's really familiar. So you kind of, even if you haven't read the books, you kind of like, I kind of vaguely know who that character is. But I haven't played that version of the game, but I looked up the rules for it to sort of get an idea of what they'd changed. And I don't think they've added more personalities. I think there's still just 7 of them.
Nanty Narking does have 7 default personalities. They mostly have the same victory conditions as the ones in Ankh-Morpork, though the Chrysoprase equivalent, Monsieur de Sidonia, has been tweaked and requires a different amount of money to win depending on the number of players in the game. But Nancy Narking also includes a set of 8 alternate personalities intended for use by experienced players. These introduce a couple of new characters, including Lenore Lloyd, the woman whose face appears on the box art, and give the existing characters either 2 different win conditions or an altered version of their existing win condition. They'd be easy enough to house rule into Ankh-Morpork, and indeed, Board Game Geek users have already done just that.
So I guess, Martin Wallace felt that was a really good balance and didn't want to change it.
Oh, yeah, no doubt. I think it is certainly very well balanced. But again, if you're going to be playing multiple games,
Yeah.
You don't, well, at least I wouldn't want to, play the same character more than once in a sitting if you're playing 4 or 5 games.
No, and I think, you'd house rule to say, like, if you get the same character, you're allowed to go, can we do this again? Like a bit of a mulligan.
Yeah.
But if there's only 7, I think everyone would have to do it. Otherwise,
because you just go, well, I know you
good
played this last
information.
time, and and I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so there's only a few more to pick.
And because Liz, you got the Mrs. Cake card, right, in both games.
Yes, I did.
Which
That was
lets
great.
you look at the unused cards, but not all
Minus
of them.
one, yeah.
Minus one, yeah. So you have a lot of information about what roles are available, but not all of the information. Yeah. Did that help you? Did you?
No, because I was, for the first one, sort of, not really, because I wasn't familiar with all of the characters enough at that stage. I was still taking in a lot of information. And the second one, I was so close to winning, I just needed the card for other reasons. So I was like, yeah, I'm looking at these. That's good to know. Oh, there's a card that the trouble helps them. Okay, but I still need $50. So,
Yeah.
which I know that to play a game well, you have to also be on keeping your eye on other things, not just what you're doing. But yeah, at that point in the game, not so much.
Yeah. Well, it's not, and it's not a hyper competitive game. Obviously we're trying to win and you can do things to try and make yourself win and you could get better at it. But I don't think this is the kind of game that you'd run a tournament of.
No.
Right? This is like a fun family game that people of a variety of ages could enjoy. There's enough chaos happening that it's kind of fun.
And it's simple.
Yeah, it is.
I think it took you maybe 5 minutes or so just to explain the basic rules and how it all works.
Yeah.
And then once you got into the game, you go, oh, yeah, okay, I get this. It's quite easy to start up.
Yeah. And it uses some icons, but the icons are pretty well explained and there's a little card for each player that reminds you what they do anyway. And I think the other thing it does really well is the cards have written on them what they do, which, as in Magic the Gathering is a very important thing. It means that when you're presented with a card you haven't seen before, you can pretty quickly figure out what it does and if you want to use it.
And the good thing is, again, going back to Magic, with this one, you don't need to know what everyone else has played on the board and read their cards to see how it affects your card. Because there's no, apart from 1 or 2 things, there's no real permanence that sit on the board on your side.
No.
So you're just playing a card. What does it do? Oh, I'll just read it. This is what it does. I play it. I discard it.
It's done it now.
It does a thing.
Yeah, and it might change the state of the board, but you can see that from all the pieces that are sitting on the board.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's fun.
It's really fun.
It never got an expansion. I think that might have been something that if it had had a longer life, that might have happened.
So you can have a second board where you travel to the Uberwolds.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Stolat.
Stolat, yeah. But there is an expansion coming, actually, for the Nancy Narking version. It's the obligatory Cthulhu-themed expansion, of course.
Sure, why not? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it adds, I'm not 100% sure what it adds. I think it adds this whole sort of extra dimension of Cthulhu stuff happening. So there's great, elder gods and stuff. I'm not 100% sure what's in it. It's not coming out till next year.
Right.
But that's been crowdfunded, as was the original Nancy Narking game. So that's happening. We'll have to watch out for that and see what's going on. I would like to try the Nancy Narking version, but I don't know if I want to try it enough to buy it because I've already got the Discworld one.
Sorry, I'm just no shade to the people putting together these good fun games. But if you're going to call your game, was it Nancy Narking?
Nancy Narking.
Which means I'm having too much fun. You go, all right, settle down.
Yeah, that's a big promise to live up to.
It's a real big swing there.
But look, it's obviously still doing well. That came out in 2019 was the first crowdfunded version of the game. And then there was a general retail version in 2021. And now they're doing this expansion, which has been crowdfunded this year and will come out next year. So it must be doing okay.
Yeah.
And I think people have really fond memories of this. And now you can't get, it's very difficult. There are secondhand copies, but you very rarely find one for less than $300 or $400 Australian dollars. because they're pretty thin on the ground. And the collector's edition ones, there weren't very many of those. And they have wooden pieces. One of them replaces the wooden pieces with resin miniatures, but both of the collected editions have like a bigger map, and they have wooden coins, and they have a few other like nice sort of additions as well. So those go for even more money. And if you see one that's signed by Terry Pratchett, there are a few of those you see floating around on eBay. They're very expensive.
Wow, cool.
So it's a bit of a collector's item as well. I was quite lucky to get a mostly untouched copy. I only realized when I was getting it out last night to remind myself of the rules that, I haven't played my copy yet. Oh, no one's played my copy yet. Like the box had been opened and the board slightly damaged in the middle, which I hadn't noticed until we were playing it today. But otherwise, it hadn't been like sort of deconstructed, like the cardboard coins hadn't been popped out of the sheet and the cards hadn't been unwrapped from the plastic. So, we broke it in today.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if we've got too much else to say, but I mean, it's just a really kind of fun experience.
No notes from me.
Do we feel, here's my question. I would agree, absolutely, that the characters and things depicted on the cards feel like they have appropriate flavor in terms of what they do to the city, right? Like characters who are assassins assassinate characters. Characters who are clowns waste people's time. There are, those things really work well. The various shops around the city earn you a bit of money, and sometimes they add someone to the board or get rid of somebody. Those sorts of things all work really, really well. But if we think about the sort of higher level story of the game with like the patricians gone and we're all doing these sort of little power plays, does it feel like it would be a Discworld novel, or does it feel more like it's kind of the general kind of background of what goes on in Ankh-Morpork, and that's probably fine for a board game, or what do we think?
Initially, I was like, Veterinary's missing, but he's one of the characters.
Yeah.
But then I was like, that would work because it's something he'd do. He'd be like, okay, we're doing a test to see what people would do if I'm not around.
Yeah.
But because his thing that he's trying to do is put spies all over the city. That's how he wins. So, I mean, if he disappeared and failed at that, then I guess he could stay disappeared and just retire safely. But otherwise, he's gathering information that's helpful to his continued patricianship. So I was like, you know what? That actually does keep with the game for me. And I'm not going to have that as a thing that frustrates me.
Yeah, fair enough.
So I think that could work as a novel. Like he stages his own disappearance so that he can information gather.
And find out who really might have the best shot at usurping him, so he can come back and get rid of them first.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
He's pulling all the strings of this.
And he just goes, well, it's not Vimes. He's not doing anything. He's just waiting for everyone to tire themselves out.
Yeah.
These three lords are just trying to take over stuff, but they're going to cannibalize each other's power.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I think that works. Yeah. I sort of had these memories of it where I seemed to, when I played it last, I was like, well, yeah, it's got a lot of Discworld stuff in it, but does it feel like something that would happen in the Discworld? And I'm like, well, sort of. But playing it again today, I'm like, yeah, it's fun. Like, it's pretty close.
Yeah, I don't think it's as sometimes, obviously, the Discworld, and especially when they've set stuff in Ankh-Morpork, it is sometimes just weird and surreal, and I don't think I ever got to that point. Any of the cards that I was playing didn't feel like it was absolutely crazy, because they all tend to do kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
It's like remove a minion, put a minion down.
Yeah. Build a building.
Get some money, build a building.
Yeah.
Sort of stuff. I think there wasn't quite enough chaos, but there are chaos cards.
Yes.
Or at least cards with chaos symbols on them that you get to turn over and it affects the board.
Those don't come up very often.
Yeah.
But they work pretty well.
They were fun. I think that was my favorite part of it, was like just someone going, well, we'll just see what comes up. I've got no control over what's about to happen, but it's going to happen to all of us. And it might be to my detriment to play this card, but I don't know.
And it's fun.
All right. Well, look, I think hopefully you've got a pretty good idea of how the game plays. It's a little bit chaotic, but also a lot of fun. And there's a lot of Discworld stuff that comes out. And most of that Discworld stuff is on the cards. So maybe before we get into some listener questions, were there any favorite moments from our games or any favorite cards that you played that you want to talk about?
I just want to say one moment that incorporates some cards, which is when Richard tried to remove one of my minions, and I immediately shut that down with the Gaspode card, which stopped a player from moving your minions. And then he tried to do it again, and then I had the Fresh Start Club, which allowed me to just move that minion somewhere else.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's right. Because I went to move your minion off a space because I knew I would move it into a space to make trouble with another person. And then you stopped me from doing that. And then went, okay, fine, I'll kill that minion that's on the space that I couldn't
That's
move.
right.
And you went, I played this card where I moved that minion. And I've gone, you just did the thing you stopped me from doing before yourself. And I don't understand what's going on.
Most annoying part of that for me was that the previous turn, Liz had played a card on me that was like, you have to give me 2 of your cards. And I'd given her the Gaspode card. So I knew she had, and I was like, I can't get rid of any of your minions because I know you just stop me. And then you soaked up both those cards, Richard.
Yeah.
So that helped me. That
Just
was good.
introducing chaos. You can't predict what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm working against myself.
Definitely could not predict what you were doing. That is for sure. That was a great moment. I enjoyed that. How about you, Richard?
Well, I had this guy, I think, twice, and then another card. I can't remember the name of it, but it does pretty much exactly the same thing. It was Cut Me Own Throat Dibbler, where it says, you roll the dice, or you roll a 12-sided dice. On a roll of 7 or more, you get to just take $4 from the bank. But if you roll a 1, one of your minions gets removed from the board.
So you're either good day selling sausages or you poison someone to
Yeah.
death.
Aren't those the same thing?
Well, possibly.
Yeah, I like that just because you go with just the roll of the dice, see how this goes. Like, you know, I might get a bunch of money or I might, set myself back quite severely.
Yeah.
But, that's cut my own throat.
Yeah.
That's the game.
The odds weren't too bad. And that lets you play another card as well, doesn't it?
Yes, and so you get to play that and then play another card straight after it.
Yeah, even if your dice roll means nothing happens, you don't totally waste your turn.
Yeah,
Which I thought was good. And there's a few other cards that have the dice roll thing in there as well. I think I saw one of the brown cards, the more advanced ones from later on, is Errol, the Swamp Dragon, who might blow up something.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was fun. You had another one, didn't you?
We talked about this earlier and stuff. I had the Fool's Guild, and there's another card, again, that does exactly the same thing, where it says, select another player, give me $5, or if you can't, put this card into your hand,
Sucks
and
to be you.
it counts as your 5.
Having both of those was just, oh man, I can't believe you did that.
Yeah.
At least you didn't give them both to the same player.
I thought about giving both to you, because you had won
okay.
the previous game.
Yeah, fair enough.
But that was the reasoning why you got it first, and then Liz got the second one later on.
Yeah, I feel like you did both pick on me a lot in that second game.
Well,
You're
that's
like,
the
you
heavy
won.
hands, the head who wears the crown.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
That's true. Look, I brought it on myself. Yeah.
No, because I had a similar card, which was the Fire Brigade, which is you choose a player, and if they do not pay you $5, then you remove one of their buildings from the board.
The famous reverse fire brigade of
Yeah.
Ankh-Morpork. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
And your favorite card?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I had a lot of ones that were just fun. I remember one of my favorite moments, just because I really enjoyed the sort of narrative of it, was when I was really struggling to get cards that I wanted. I managed to get the History Monks card, and that let me get some extra cards, but not out of the draw pile, out of the discard pile,
Yeah.
which made sense. I was delving into the past to see what was useful, but they were at random. But those cards then helped me, and I was able to play. I think I ended up playing Captain Angwer twice.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was quite useful because she's like gets rid of some trouble, and I think places a minion or something. I can't remember exactly what she did, but yeah, that was good.
Yeah, and then I had this same card twice,
yeah.
once, in both games we played. It's the only card of its type that we could find. It's called the Peeled Nuts, and
yes.
you reminded me that they're the group that do the
Historical reenactments, yeah.
And it does nothing. It literally does nothing.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the joke made about them in the book too.
Yeah.
So that's pretty appropriate.
But I got it twice, and I'm just going, well, goddamn stupid card.
Yeah.
The disdain with which you got rid of them.
Oh
both
yeah, gumming up my turn.
Yeah. Yeah. Just wasting space in your hand. Ugh, the worst. Well, look, that probably brings us to some listener questions. And we got some great ones. Thank you for all of those of you who sent them in via Discord, via various social media platforms. Remember, anytime you want to send us questions about an upcoming episode, you can do that via email to chat@pratchatpodcast.com or via our various social media accounts. And, of course, if you're on our Discord as one of our supporters, you can ask them there as well. We got some great ones.
Are you on X?
We are still on X, but we don't really get a lot of questions there anymore.
Really?
No.
Well, not the kind of questions that you want.
Well, no, just none. Just none.
All right. So our first questions come from Molokov via Discord. So I'll read out all the questions and we will just tackle them in whichever order we see fit.
Sure.
So which is your favorite card in the deck based on its action, illustration, or how the two work together? Which of the roles seems like the most fun to play? And given that this game came out before the end of the Discord series, are there any characters from the final few novels or even some earlier ones that you think should have made it onto cards in the game? If so, what power would they have using existing game mechanisms?
Oh, I like that question. And interesting. So this came out in 2011, which was the same year as Snuff. It probably would have come out before Snuff. So that's before the last 3 books. We've only done up to Snuff on the podcast. So let's try not to pick anything too specific from Raising Steam or The Shepherd's Crown. We don't want to spoil anyone for those before we talk about them. Mm-hmm. But I also, when we were playing this, I was thinking about this. I don't think I saw any characters. There aren't really any like Tiffany Aching characters because it wouldn't make sense for them to be in Ankh-Morpork for the most part anyway. But I don't think I saw any characters from Unseen Academicals. There were a lot of characters from Making Money, which makes me think maybe the game started development around like before Unseen Academicals was finished.
Yeah, because obviously you can't just make a game and bring it out the next week.
No.
You've got to, make sure the game mechanics work and get all the characters written down onto cards and play test them a million times.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with most of the characters who were in it, and all the characters who weren't in it that I enjoyed wouldn't have been a part of this setting. Obviously we've got Angua, but there's no other werewolves, which I was fine with. I think there's one vampire in it.
There's a couple, I think, but not very many.
Yeah. And I was fine with that. I've gone, obviously if there'd been an expansion, you can bring in new characters and new cards and a new area to explore. Sort of like with Talisman. Do you ever play that?
Oh, yeah.
And the expansions would go on each corner of the board. So the board would get bigger and bigger. And so you could go around the middle of the board. And then if you got to the corner, you could pop off almost into another area of the world and explore around in there and then come back to the main world. But other than that, I don't think there was any characters really that stood out as they shouldn't have been in it. Yeah.
Were there any cards that you thought what they did and who the character was particularly on point?
Well, I think we discussed it before, but the luggage, which has a great picture as well.
Yeah.
Its very first ability is eat a minion.
Oh,
just kill a minion on the board. I just thought that was very on brand.
Yeah.
A picture of it licking its lips and going, yeah, I just got rid of someone.
What about the roles? Which one do you think is most fun to play in terms of the personalities that you get to play as?
Well, my one, the second one, the Dragon Lord.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Making Trouble on the board.
Yeah, Making Trouble on the board was heaps of fun because it's quite easy to do it.
Yes.
Because you just put a minion in an area with another minion and they just instantly make trouble. So, and that happens a lot, even if you're not playing that character.
Yeah.
So it's quite easy to fly under the radar going, both you and Liz were doing my job for me at some point.
Yes.
So that was fun. Yeah. I think Vimes, you've got to really be lucky to win with that. That there are a lot of cards in the deck to get through.
Yes.
And I looked through some of the other cards we didn't get to, and I can only find one that, as I was wondering about before, that says just take some cards and discard them into the discard pile.
Right.
But there's only one of those.
So there's not a lot you can do to sort of get towards your victory condition as Vimes.
Yeah.
Except not lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I suppose you're just trying to stop people from doing what they're doing, but again, you don't really know what they're doing. So you might be hindering, you might be helping by doing things.
And one of the special event cards is a Riot, which we did turn over in the first game. That was our only one that we turned over. And that's if there's enough trouble on the board, I think it was like 5 or 6 points of trouble, then the game just immediately ends and you have to count points. And if that happens, Vimes doesn't win. Like he has to count points like everybody else. And points you get points for having minions on the board, having buildings on the board, having money left over, that kind of stuff. So that's a bit more of a Euro game kind of end of the game thing. But I don't think I've ever played a game where, maybe one game that I played ended with us having to figure out point scores.
Right.
It's usually somebody wins. Yeah.
Is there a death card? Like maybe in the second half?
There is a death card. Yeah. I forget what it does, but there is one. Yeah.
We actually sort of touched on Mark Schulder's question via Mastodon, which is which card's effect do you think matches up best with its character and location, which was the luggage, I think. I would agree.
Yeah. Sorry, you're right.
We also got a comment from Niall O'Callaghan who said it's got to be moist.
Now, I did look up moist for this to make sense of this. So, moist, I mean, it's a great illustration, by the way, of moist.
Nice.
I like it. He's got sideburns, but I just like it when
different look for him than we used to. But again, you're not supposed to remember how he looks.
Yeah, so. he's very generic looking. Yeah, but he's got the hat and everything. His little icons means that he puts someone on the board. He gets $3. He takes 2 cards from the deck, and then he lets you play another card.
That's heaps.
He does a lot of things.
Yeah,
he's pretty good.
That lines up with his character.
He's got another identity. He's popping up somewhere else. He's finding his money. He's taking a couple of cards, so he's ready for later. He's got his plan in place, and then he lets someone else have a go. I'm like, I mean, it's not exciting. It's not like a really sophisticated, intricate special power that takes 4 lines to describe, but I think it kind of works.
But having said that, I can't think of any other card that I saw that we either played or didn't get to play that gets you 3 things and play another card afterward.
That is pretty rare. I think the only one I remember is, I think Rincewind might do 3 things, but one of them is draw a special ability and then it's like run away from it. So I thought that was quite good. That lined up.
In the same thing, Groat's card, which you played and I got in the first round, I think, it's just place a minion.
Oh, right.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Oh, wow.
Suits him.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Groat.
I think my favorite one that I got to play was Mr. Slant, because Mr. Slant, you choose an area that has trouble, and then you get $2 for each minion that's there. So he's like,
you made that like a bandit.
Someone's causing trouble.
Ooh.
Well, I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to make money sorting that out. I thought that was pretty good. And one I didn't get to play, which I really liked, was Wee Mad Arthur, who thinks he's a gnome and then he finds out he's a pixie. But a great picture of him too, like in his extermination days with a little crossbow killing rats. But he just gets to build a building for half price.
Oh, no.
Because he's building a tiny little building. I thought that was very fun.
That was cute.
Yeah, there's some other great ones. I found Hubert, if we remember from Making Money, is the one who makes the Glooper, the machine that like models how money moves around the city, but also actually controls how money moves around the city. And so his power is force one player to give another player $3. It can't be you. So I thought that was pretty great. And I also, Casa, who's like, great illustration
so
of
ominous.
Him looking really
Not
psycho.
Ominous, it's scary.
Yeah, with a bloody knife and just blood splattered everywhere. But you roll the die twice and you just remove 1 minion of your choice from each of those locations on the map. Because there's 12 locations. They're numbered 1 through 12. So sometimes you randomly select them. So he just pops up somewhere and kills a couple of people at random. One thing I will say, just to go back to, how well did it fit in and who would you like to add in? I was a little disappointed from the Wizards because the main thing they did was add people to the board near where Unseen University is. They didn't really seem to have any other kind of theme. There wasn't any kind of magic thing that they did.
Yeah, they were sort of stuck in that area and that area effect right around,
Yeah, I think they might be slightly more likely to create a special effect, which means they're slightly more likely to pull the card that summons demons, for example, from the dungeon dimensions. But I wondered if there was some way to make them feel more dangerous or weird.
Yeah, well, I did play Rid Cully, and his first ability is draw a chaos card.
Yeah. I think, maybe most of the Wizards do. That would make sense because they've got magic,
I think Rincewind did because I think
Rincewind definitely did, yeah. I think, but if I think about who I would add in, I think like the goblins are so much fun and they really only come in Snuff and Raising Steam. I think it would have been nice to see them and more characters from Unseen Academicals. Like it would have been great to see, some of the football players and how that would have interacted. Because, we've got Dolly Sisters and Dimwell as locations on the board. But the football teams don't really come into it. There's no football hooliganism. There's no, there's none of the stuff from the game there. And I wonder if they were avoiding that. Maybe they thought we might make a football game later. Like that could be a good theme for a game. I don't know.
Just an expansion pack of new cards and.
Yeah. Could be. I mean, they did art. They did one of the promotional things they did for Unseen Academicals was a set of like football cards with illustrations of the players on them.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. That's great.
It was like one of the British bookstores that often had the exclusive things with Discworld books. They had like that as a little
Sounds like a
pre-order bonus.
Waterstones thing.
Yeah, I think it was a Waterstones thing. Yeah. But I thought, I think that was maybe missing. But not a lot. Like most of the books that came after this were not set in Ankh-Morpork. But the ones that were. But I think Raising Steam, it's all about trains. Like you'd have to make a train game. Yeah, and I know one of our listeners and supporters is very keen on train games and has pointed out that there are some fan adaptations of popular train games for Discworld. So, it's kind of happened. But
yeah, and I mean, in Magic the Gathering, I've got a couple of decks that I play and some of the cards are just hideously expensive. And so I just play with proxies. So I just I'll get my own picture and write in the of what it does and just print one out.
Yeah.
And I've got, sorry, I'm not going to pay $500 for this card, for this bit of cardboard.
Yeah.
But I'll print one out. And I don't think, and I don't want to take anything away from the people who design the game, but because there isn't a lot of different things to do, it's like play a minion, take some money, build a building. I think there's few enough things that you can do on these cards that you could possibly get another 20 cards and theme them to another group of people or creatures or a setting, so you could bring it in just to give yourself a little bit extra.
Yeah, I wonder, I wouldn't be surprised if there's some fan-made expansions that are out there somewhere. I'm going to have to look that up on Board Game Geek, etc. That's one thing I didn't look for, but I bet someone's done it.
Yeah.
Because it's been around, it's been around for 14 years, and it's Discworld, it's popular. I think someone would have done it.
Were there many characters from Moving Pictures or Soul Music?
That's a good question. Well, Ruby from Moving Pictures was there. That was great.
House of Ribs?
Hager's House of Ribs, which is in a lot of the books, but it is in those, yeah. It's interesting because I feel like they kind of have avoided putting in characters who are in Ankh-Morpork for a while and then the story sort of takes them out again. So like Susan is in there. There is a Susan card.
There is, yeah.
But I don't think there's a Buddy card from Soul Music. I don't think any of the musicians from Soul Music are in there.
Yeah.
The wizards are obviously there from Soul Music, but yeah. No, I don't think so. That could be fun. You could do. I think that would be the way to do it. If you're going to make a little batch of cards, is like pick a group of characters who all kind of go together, and then sort of balance them against each other, and do them as a little set, and then add them into the game. I think that would be fun.
Yeah,
yeah.
All right. So our next questions come from David Butler via Discord. Does the game feel in any way the way you feel when you think of Ankh-Morpork, and how does the Ankh-Morpork game overlap with the Guards board game?
We kind of answered that first one a little bit. We kind of talked about that, I think.
Yes, for me.
Do you think it captures Ankh-Morpork at a particular point in the books?
I think there's definitely, with some of the characters, as you were saying before, it's not very clear, but it seems clear-ish that they got up to a certain point in the books and they said, right, we're going to cut off characters. There might be some more books that come out after this, but we're just going to concentrate on the characters that we have already rather than fiddling around and trying to put too much in. It certainly has an of its time stamp on it where you go, cool, these are the characters. They've just taken that set of time and that's where they're from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that the time in the timeline of the books that it places it in, because that's around the time of Making Money, which is pretty close to the time of Thud. And the new role-playing game, Discworld role-playing game that's coming out, the default time frame for games that you play of that is set in that same time, around the time of Thud.
Right.
And I wonder if that's sort of seen as, because it's just before some of the really big changes happen towards the end, like the coming of the railways and stuff that we're going to look at when we get to Raising Steam.
Yeah.
Is that there's not those big changes have happened yet, but a lot of the other stuff that people are familiar with from the books has happened. And so it kind of feels like the right place to put a game where you're going to be kind of making your own story.
Yeah.
And it's got enough stuff that you're familiar with all those things, you know what's going on, but it's not like, but also here's the big change that happened towards the end that not everyone has read and not everyone knows about.
Here's Ankh-Morpork, but also steam engines.
Yeah.
And you go, all right. Because I don't know. It's like, I love all the books, but some choices towards the end I went, now it's just getting a little too modern.
Yeah, okay.
There's like, it's too like, I don't know. I wanted it to just stick to more fantasy, and I love steam trains. They're heaps of fun.
Yeah,
but I didn't want it in Discworld.
Yeah, and well, we've got a Victorian London version of the game now, so that can have steam trains.
Yeah. I'm down with that.
Kind of has to have them, really, if it's going to feel like Victorian London. Now, you haven't played the Guards board game, Richard.
I have not.
But we have played it, Liz.
Yes, and I can definitely remember details about it, what the board looked like, how the game mechanics are, how long ago we played it, all of those things I can recall for you.
Great, good. Would you like to recite? No, that's fine. I do remember it pretty well. I think there's an interesting, really tonal difference between the two games. The premise of that game, if you haven't listened to that, listener, and for your benefit, Richard, is that the spells from the Octavo in the Unseen University have escaped into the city somewhere, and you are playing various guilds of the city trying to help the City Watch get them back.
Yep.
And so you send your little minions out running around the city trying to find them, and you want to be the first one to find and collect a certain number of those spells. Mm-hmm. And that means you're rolling a dice, you're moving around the board. The luggage moves around the board by itself. It might trample on you. Someone might summon a dragon, which comes and eats you. Like, you're trying to achieve a goal while things are getting in your way. And it feels, I think, even though this has a sort of a silly random kind of feel to it, I feel like it's much more strategic because it's not a roll and move and get around the map and maybe someone's going to gazump you. This is more like, well, I'm trying to enact my plans and someone else might try to interrupt me, but they've also got to try and do their thing and they don't know exactly what I'm doing. So I feel like this feels a bit more strategic.
Oh, yeah.
And there's chaos involved, but it's not all chaos all the time.
You don't roll the dice very much at all in this game.
No.
Like, I was lucky to play a bunch of cards that let me.
Yeah.
But I think I only did like maybe 3 or 4 times in the 2 games we played. So yeah, it felt very much like a strategic game.
Yeah.
You get your character, you figure out what you need to do, and then you can map out at least your first 2, 3, 4 turns.
Yeah.
As long as you draw the cards that help you do it.
Yeah. And after that point, then you're looking at the board to see what other people might be doing as well.
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, like it kind of positions the game at a certain point, maybe a bit later in the books, whereas Guards feels more like those early Discworld books where there's a bit more slapstick and a bit more mayhem and weirdness going on.
Yeah.
Which is fun, but it's a bit more like Talisman in some ways.
It does sound like Talisman, to be honest.
It's a little bit more like that, I think. Yeah. Than this. So I think there's
land on this square, roll a dice.
Yeah.
Either get an extra life or be thumped by a dragon.
There's a little bit of that.
It's like all the time.
And it has a little bit of like light role playing stuff too, because you have stats on your character sheet. Like, well, you have a little board for your guild and you improve your stats. And sometimes when you attempt something, you got to roll a dice to see if you even get it done. Whereas this is more traditional sort of Eurogamey, board gamey stuff. Like, you play a card, you get to do what it says on the card. You just do it. So I think there's a definite tonal difference between the two, both in terms of the sort of feel, but also in terms of the mechanics and the kind of board game genre that they're trying to go for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Our next question comes from Wee Mad Arthur via Coffee. If you could make one adjustment or add one thing in Ankh-Morpork, what would it be and why? So the example that they give is in Thud, I'd give Troll a Peacemaker.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, okay.
That is pretty good.
That's pretty intense. So there is a Thud board game, Richard, if you're not familiar with this, based on the game from the books. Or indeed, it inspired the game in the books because the game came first, but it was based on the sort of lore of dwarves and everything. But it's great. It's a fun game, but it's like a Huffle game. It's a very traditional old school pre-chess kind of board game. So that, having the trolls have a Peacemaker would really change that game. It was just one troll because you have I think it's, from memory, I think it's 8 trolls is one side of the game. And then the dwarves have 24 dwarves or something. I can't remember the exact number. And the idea is you play 2 games. And so you play one as the trolls and one as the dwarves. And then you tally up some points to see who won. But if one of the trolls had a Peacemaker, that might make a big difference to that game. That's very funny. So if there was one thing that you could change or add about this, what would it be? Would you change anything?
It could be one of the cards already in the Chaos deck, but I always enjoy in a game when just randomly out of nowhere there's a card where it makes you swap places with another player, and so it changes your whole strategy and ruins things with them. And it's
that would be great.
Yeah, wow.
Take your character card and swap it with another player.
And look, that does happen in Guards.
Okay.
I think, well, there's something where you swap, you at least have to swap your whole hands. I think there's a card that happened at least a couple of times when we played where you all hand the hands of cards around the table.
See, I just love that element because it just changes, like, and it means you get to experience another part of the game within like one game as well.
And then see like maybe how close the other person was to winning, and then go, well, I don't know how I'm going to win now because they've done all the work.
Yeah.
but it's not in the places that I need it to be or something.
Yeah.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this adds an extra, and I think that is in keeping with the feel of the game still. So
There is that card. I had it in the first game. I think you might have had it in the second game, Liz, because I think you remember you discarding it.
the draw, the new, like from the...
the Retro Phrenologist card.
Yeah.
It's a great fit for that too, which is you discard your secret roll and draw a new one. And I had that in my hand, but I was like, I'm really close to winning. I don't want to use that.
I want to involve another player or all the players, just like you just, But,
Okay.
Yeah.
That's wacky. I like it.
I think the only thing I would have liked to have seen a bit more of is each area of the city just be a little bit more thematic, if that makes sense.
Like something happens there that's more distinctive.
Yeah, I know that if you take over the Shades, or if you take over Nap Hill, you get that card that will help you each turn or hinder you depending on what you get. But I wanted a little bit more, you know, sort of if I'm taking over a certain area, I wanted it to be a little bit more thematic.
Like maybe it's easier to place minions in some areas or that sort of thing. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I mean, now that I think about it, you do get the card that corresponds to that area if you take it over.
Yeah.
But again, I think they were kind of generic. Like one is just like, get $2 at the start of every turn. Okay.
That's good.
And there's another area that says, get $3 at the start of every turn. Well, why do you have two areas that do pretty much exactly the same thing? Just one is you get $1 more. I would have liked to have seen like
a bit more variety there.
A bit more variety.
Make them a bigger deal.
Yeah. And make it like on brand for that area.
Yeah. And I think they are on brand, but I agree with you that they don't feel like earth-shattering powers.
Yeah.
And given it's the only way to get like something you can reliably do every turn, maybe that would be fun. I don't know. I mean, I kind of...
Stuff like if you play the mended drum card in a certain area, every time there's trouble, there's double trouble. You know, the fight just gets bigger and bigger at the mended drum.
I think in Guards, there are cards that have a better effect or a different effect in certain circumstances or certain places. I think because one of the things you can do is visit a shop and get items that your characters can use when you use them for a challenge.
Yeah.
And I think some of them are better in certain areas or certain circumstances. I forget exactly how that works.
Sounds
but
very much like Talisman.
it is very, I think there's some influence
Which
there.
isn't a bad thing. Yeah.
No, I mean, it is to me. I never liked Talisman, but I think it's just because I didn't play it young enough.
All right. This next question comes from Sven via Discord. How important is theming for you versus a good rule set? So would you rather play a top-rated themeless board game or a Discworld Monopoly?
Oh,
Monopoly can go fuck itself. It's a fucking terrible game for bad people. The original,
really
every other themed one, be it Star Wars or whatever. No.
I'm sure you're aware. You know the history of Monopoly,
Yeah.
Richard?
It's like the Squid Game of board games.
Is it a bunch of narcissists hanging around who made a game that they wanted to piss people off with?
No, it was a woman named Elizabeth McGee who made it in order to demonstrate an alternate form of taxation. So the rules that we play for Monopoly, the modern version, are intended to show how bad capitalism is, right? And then there's an alternate, or there's a rules change that you make, and then you play it with that rules change in place, and then you see how much better the world would be under this single tax system proposed by this guy named George. That was his last name. I've forgotten his first name. And so the whole point, it was meant to demonstrate something about the way the world worked. It wasn't meant to be, let's like ruin all of our friends' lives.
But this woman who designed this game still sold it for money, right?
No, not really. She was giving it away to demonstrate this political point. And then people liked the capitalist version, so they pirated it. And then someone bought it off one of the pirates who'd made it. And then Parker Brothers eventually bought that version. And I think Elizabeth McGee eventually got paid like $10 or something in royalties or something like that. Or license fee. And then Parker Brothers or whatever has made $1 squillion off it since.
The original
that's-
point stands, and it's actually a lot sadder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
it's well worth looking into. The original version is called The Landlord's Game.
I think the history sounds very interesting.
Yeah.
The board game itself is terrible.
Oh, well, yeah, look, but
ruins-
it's kind of meant to be.
yeah, but I
think it's
just
the
don't
point.
think it's fun.
No.
Yeah. And so to the point of the question is that, like, I would much rather play a game that is well put together and interesting to play
Yeah.
rather than taking some shitty game like Monopoly
And putting a Discworld theme
putting
on
a
it.
Star Wars sticker on the front of it.
Yeah, for sure.
Or a Dungeons and Dragons sticker on the front of it.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't want to play this dumb game.
I was recently in a game shop buying something, and someone, and no shade on them. Look, I don't like Monopoly either, but the version that they were buying was, I think it was Elton John Monopoly.
Oh my
Wow.
goodness.
And I'm like, what? Like,
I mean-
because we know that what they change is just the names of the things on the board.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Well, the chance cards are also like sometimes things.
yeah, not very much though. This is what I was disappointed by. The
Yeah.
last time I played
Could you
Monopoly,
put
it was
Elton
Doctor
John
Who
in
Monopoly.
jail?
Doesn't seem right, does it?
Elton John puts
That
you-
seems
yeah.
Seems
you
a
have
bit
to
off.
change that.
I reckon you're left outside the concert arena or something, and you
Yeah,
can't get
yeah.
in.
But I am with you, Richard. I think theme. It's interesting because there's a great YouTube channel made by a Melbourne couple. It's called Thinker Themer. Right, they're a couple, and one of them, she really likes the themes of the games. The other one, she really likes the mechanics and the gameplay.
Yeah.
And so when they talk about a game, it's really great because they talk about it from both angles, and I think they are both important. But I probably would be on your side of things. I would much rather play a really good abstract game than a really crap game with an interesting theme.
Yeah. Like, case in point, there are two games that I thoroughly love.
Yeah.
One, we know this, Magic the Gathering.
Yes.
Great. And the second one is Armello, which is an online game.
Oh yeah, I played Armello.
Yeah. I thoroughly enjoy it. It's great. But it is sort of generic, sort of, not super generic, but there's
It's got a light theme to it.
yeah, but there's like a king in the middle who's passing away, very much like this game, sort of, and everyone's running around the outside trying to build up prestige and power. So eventually, when the king passes away, you win. And there's different win conditions again.
And they're all animals, but that's
They're all
not really
animals.
important.
Yeah, no, it doesn't really matter that they're animals and stuff. That game is great,
Not a super strong theme.
but not a super strong theme and stuff. Whereas, and I don't know whether or not I've contradicted myself here, but Magic the Gathering, love it to bits. I've got like 30,000 cards at home, like more than I should have.
Yeah.
And I understand that I have a problem.
It's okay.
But at the end of this year, we're getting a Spider-Man set of Magic the Gathering cards, and that is dumb as hell.
Yeah, it doesn't really
I
fit. does
don't
it?
want that. That is not Magic the Gathering. That is them just going, let's smash my piece together. Like we're getting a Sonic the Hedgehog one, I think, and there's not going to be a Pokemon
It's an Avatar
one. The Avatar, that's the one. Yeah, that's what I'm
Avatar: The Last Airbender, not
Yeah.
Avatar: The Blue
God, that'd
Cat
be
People.
worse. Avatar, the movie is a steaming pile of crap. I've talked about this. James Cameron just went, I've taken 15 years to write this script. Or you watched Fern Gully last night. and
Smashed in a bit of Pocahontas.
And some unobtainium.
Unobtainium, what a dumb. Oh, it's really hard to get. What do they call it? Oh, tell me, Jim, you auteur. It's called unobtainium. You're lucky you did a couple of good films because.
This is not it, buddy.
Yeah,
but look,
and the second
he's
Avatar is
he's
just
got so
like,
much money, he
look
can
at
do
all the
whatever he
fish.
wants now. That's fine. I did not see the second one.
It's a really good documentary about fish.
Oh, so it's an adaptation of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea.
Yeah, pretty much. It looks gorgeous, and the underwater cinematography and CG is flawless.
Yeah, sure.
And the story is bollocks.
Yeah, okay. Well, look, we're getting off topic here a little bit.
There's always time to hate Avatar.
Sure. But I sorry, any Avatar fans. But
I'm not.
Yeah, I like Magic too, and I think there's a real feeling in the community around that game that the theme is important, and the theme of Magic has always been this kind of high fantasy kind of, wizards who have the power to travel between worlds, summoning creatures to fight on their behalf. And each time they've brought out a new set, often it's themed around, here's a weird world that fits into that larger framework. And so putting these things in from outside that aren't fantasy feels a bit weird. And previously when they've done that, like with things like Doctor Who or Fallout, the video games, or Warhammer 40,000, it's been very kind of on the side.
Yes.
And when they have brought things more into the middle, they've been things that fit better into the theme, like
Lord of the Rings.
or Dungeons
fantastic.
and Dragons, right? Which is a obvious crossover. It really kind of gels.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree that something like Spider-Man, the theme doesn't, you could make, there's nothing wrong with like making a Spider-Man version of Magic that's quite similar, but putting it into the same game where it's meant to be this cohesive kind of idea of how the world works and what the genre is makes it feel weird. And I think in the same way, yeah, I would rather play, if I'm going to play a game with a good theme, I want that theme to match what the game is.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kicker. If the theme is a little bit off, but the game is really fun to play, you don't really mind so much.
Yeah.
But if the theme is something you like, but the game is shit, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So I have a clear preference for that. Yeah. But I do want the theme to be nice. And my favorite was when the theme and the mechanics of the game really mesh really well. And I think this game does a good enough job of that. I don't think it's necessarily the best match of the two things that I've ever played, but I do think it does a good job and it's good fun.
I don't think I would rush out and try and find this on eBay.
Yeah.
But if you invited me around to play it, I would be here in a heartbeat.
Yeah, great. Well, we'll have to do that another time.
All right, so next question comes from We Mad Arthur via coffee. What is your favorite Discworld-themed game and why is that game Werewolf?
I feel like you're pushing an agenda with your questions here, We Mad Arthur, but I'm okay with it. I'm all right with it. I'm glad I mentioned your card in the game, by the way. That was a lot of fun. Look, it's interesting because Werewolf is, we just talked about whether a theme is strong or not. Werewolf is a pretty strong theme if you're not familiar, Werewolf is a social deduction game. Mm-hmm. You don't really play it with a board. You often play it with cards these days, but each player has a role. In the traditional version, they're either a villager or a werewolf. But that itself is a new theme put on an existing game. The original version was called Mafia, and it came from Russia. It was developed by a psychologist in Russia as an experiment that he did with students. Were they a psychologist? They might have been a sociologist or a political science person. I forget exactly.
I hope they're a psychologist because it will help me with an event I have coming up.
Sure. Well, we can look it up because we do know the origin of it. There's a great video that I can recommend for you from a channel called No Pun Included, where they looked at a modern social deduction game called Blood on the Clock Tower, which was made by, at least in part, some Australian designers and very, very successful, much more sophisticated than Werewolf in many ways. Mm-hmm. And they love that game. But they, as a result of reviewing it, they kind of went into the history of these social deduction games, going all the way back to Werewolf. And where does Werewolf come from? Well, it's a reskin of this game Mafia. It was invented, we can tell you, it's not just a folk game that was made up by some people we don't know who. No, it was invented by a specific guy in the 80s. And the Werewolf version is also invented by a specific person a little bit later than that, who rethemed it because they thought, well, having it being organized crime and killing people, that's a little too close. Like that's not so much fun to us. But what if we make it fantasy?
Yeah.
And I think that retheme does make a difference. And when I did a version of the game, we turned it into being about spies. And then I've done another one about witch hunts, which is meant to be a little more sort of politically charged. Mm-hmm. And then I did another version about it, which was smugglers and people trying to catch smugglers in a town. But that was modified. So some of the villagers wanted the smugglers to win because they don't want the smuggling stuff to stop. You know, they want to get the contraband in that they really like.
Contraband is pretty sweet.
It's true. So, you know, the theme does matter. And whether you can say Werewolf is Discworld themed or not that's a big question. I think that goes deeper than you suspect, We Mad Arthur. I don't mind Werewolf, but I think there are better social deduction games, and I think this game has a little bit of that in its DNA because you have those hidden roles and you are trying to figure out who people are, not because that wins you the game, but because it gives you an opportunity to, you know, make choices that will help you in the game.
Yes, gives you information about what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And you can try and stop them.
Yeah.
But you might be massively wrong and help them out.
Now, we are the only ones here who've played any other Discworld themed games.
And I can remember them.
Do you have a favorite from the ones we've played? You haven't played all of them, but you've played most of them.
I really enjoyed The Witches. Like, that's one I come back to. For I remember it was easy to play. It was enjoyable. It was one I wanted to play again immediately.
Yeah.
And the artwork was beautiful and different to what I had seen in other games. So, but I also thoroughly enjoyed this one. So I don't know if I can have a favorite. But in terms of the ones we've played that I find myself like most likely to go and buy myself a copy of, be this one or The Witches.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think if I had to pick a favorite, I probably would pick The Witches. I think it's a really interesting design. It's a semi-cooperative game, so that's a really interesting design space. I think it has a nice balance of that. I think it's nice to see a game about those characters, whereas we've got two games about Ankh-Morpork and they are very different. So I think if I had to pick a favorite, it would be that one. But, you know, I also like this. And we probably won't do an episode about it because there's a couple of different ones, but there are fan written rules that have the sort of semi-official stamp of approval for Cripple Mr. Onion, the card game that we play. And I did buy a special pack of cards that has 8 suits so that we could try playing it, but I don't know if I want to. It seems very complicated. And obviously the game in the books, the whole point of it is it's so complicated no one can understand it. So I don't know that I really want to try playing it as an actual game.
Yeah.
But I don't think that would be my favorite anyway.
All right, so our next questions come from Molokov via Discord. What would you have wished for if Martin Wallace's The Gods had been published? And Lord of the Rings, The Fate of the Fellowship is a newly released game which puts the Pandemic cooperative board game system into Middle-earth. Pandemic has previously also been rethemed into the worlds of Cthulhu Mythos, World of Warcraft, and Star Wars The Clone Wars. If there was a Discworld-themed Pandemic system game, what do you imagine it would be like? This is specifically a question for Ben, who I know loves Pandemic, Daybreak, and other Matt Laycock games.
It's true. Guilty as charged. I do love those games very much. I've collected most of them. Richard, I feel it's to my shame now that you're here and we're talking about this, that the only
Monopoly
ones I
themed,
don't
sorry.
have are the newest one, which I haven't got yet because it's only just come out, which is the Lord of the Rings one that Molkov's asking about in this question, and the World of Warcraft one I don't have. But I've got the others, including the Star Wars one and the Cthulhu one. The Cthulhu one's
Fun. I like that one. This is the one that's
it's
like,
all right.
Yeah.
It's all right. It's not my favorite, but it's okay. But let's ask the first one first. Like if there had been this game come out about the gods of Discworld, I have looked up a bit about how people described it who got a chance to play the prototype, because it was a prototype. It did get a little bit of public play testing before it was cancelled. But without going into that first, what would you be looking for in a board game about the gods of Discworld?
I'd want it to be collaborative, like you play as a team, like against or towards like a goal, like whether you're defeating the gods or you are the gods. I think I would like it to be a collaborative game.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
And a big turtle thing.
Big turtle thing.
Yeah,
I like
whether
that.
that's a figurine, whether the whole board is shaped like one, but I just turtle.
It would be a good opportunity to have a board that was a map of the whole disc.
Yeah.
Because none of the other games are like that. They're either Ankh-Morpork, which is this one, and Guards, or and the map in The Witches actually is beautiful because it's like the Ram Tops. So it's got all the parts of Lanka and all the other towns that are mentioned. Yeah.
I think I'd like, if you're playing the gods, a gods game, I feel like maybe you play as a hero that the gods have decided to be their champion, and it's up to you to draw as many gods to your side as possible. And each god that you draw over to your side gives you a bonus or gives you an extra action or whatever. So you're playing off against the other champions, but also playing gods against each other who might interact. So maybe the god doesn't interact with the champion on the board. He interacts with the other gods on the other side of the board.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
you're almost playing two characters at once on your turn.
That's interesting. That's kind of like the old Mythos card game, which was
is
based
it?
on the Cthulhu things. This was a collectible card game from the 90s where you have an investigator and to win the game, you have to complete little stories that are on cards. And the stories have like keywords. And so you have to have played all the cards that match the keywords. Like, you traveled somewhere and you met a weird cultist and then they had an artifact and they summoned a monster. So if you played cards that match those keywords, you'd score that adventure and you'd get some points for it. But when you summon monsters in the game, they don't interact directly with the investigators because they're like ants to them. They have their own cosmic battle in the sky and they might incidentally kill some of you, but that's not really the point of what they're doing. And I feel like that's kind of what you're saying.
That sounds like exactly what I would want.
Yeah, okay. That's interesting. Because I was thinking back to the really early Discworld novels where the gods are literally playing a game with the heroes as their pieces.
Yeah, they are too. Yeah, that's
and
right.
it's very much meant to clearly represent it's meant to feel like they're playing Dungeons and Dragons, but the people they're playing it with happen to be real people in the real world. And I feel like there's an element of that would work. And I think that
You
could
can build up your belief.
Yeah, I think that would be it,
Yeah.
And I think that is what it was intended to be, because what people said about it when they got to play it is that it is a bit like this game, the Ankh-Morpork game, but more complicated. It's a bit deeper, a bit more strategic. And that it has some deck building and resource management kind of elements to it. And the impression that I got is, you play as one of the gods and you are gathering belief to make yourself stronger. You're sending out characters on the board to sort of further your interests or to get one over on the other gods. So I think there's a few of those different elements that came in. It sounds like it would have been pretty good.
Yeah.
I think I would not want to tell Martin Wallace what to do.
No, of course
he
not.
is a very celebrated and popular game designer. And I think he knows what he's doing. I'd let him cook,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Pandemic question?
Oh, yeah. So a pandemic question just for me. I can't, Melkov, it's so nice of you to ask this, but also I have to think about this. If you're going to do a Discworld pandemic, I feel like one of the things that didn't happen in this game for us, and it only happens very rarely, is the dungeon dimensions kind of coming. I feel like that's the natural kind of place because you need something that's a disaster that could pop up anywhere on the disc, and that could be the weakening of the wall between dimensions. They could happen anywhere on the Discworld, right? But maybe to make it more interesting, instead of it being always the dungeon dimensions intruding, a lot of those early Discworld books are about something coming into the Discworld that doesn't belong there, whether that's creatures from the dungeon dimensions or rock and roll music or cinema. And I feel like in the Cthulhu version of Pandemic, you kind of choose a great old one. And I think in the Discworld version of Pandemic, maybe you choose a weird thing that's coming into the Discworld, and you'd have some that were like rock music or whatever from the books, but then you'd have a few that didn't happen in the books that might be interesting, like social media that we've talked about. As maybe you would have written about that if you're still writing books now, stuff like that. And then that's sort of the threat. I think that could be fun. And then you could bring in some of the mechanics from probably my favorite version of Pandemic is the Fall of Rome one. I think that's really good. It's really interesting, some of the ways they vary it. But I think you could bring in some of the stuff from that where you have a specific character that has a bit more weight to it than in the traditional Pandemic game. And I think, I think that could be fun. But I would do it over the whole disc.
Yeah.
I think that would be nice. You'd have a big map of the whole disc and it's split up into areas, and then, something's leaking through and causing a problem.
All right, our final questions come from David Butler via Discord. Is there any other story or situation or idea from Discworld that you think could have made a good board game? Choose your own definition of what good means for a game. And then are there any games from inside the Discworld universe you would have liked to see in real life, like how Thud was released here in Round World? So, Ben, obviously you'd like to see Cripple Mr. Onion, be as complicated as possible.
No, I think, I'm always kind of disappointed. We've talked about the fact that there's a version of chess in the Discworld called Assassin Chess, where they have this thing called the slurks, which are these invisible squares off the board. And if you've got the assassin piece, it can move off the board and into the slurks, where it still has to follow rules, but the other players can't see where it's going. And then it can come out of the slurks and suddenly appear on the board and kill somebody. I feel like we need rules for that. I think it'd be so difficult because keeping track of things, but I guess that's the point, right? For assassins, it's a mental exercise. But I think that having rules for that and maybe a fun customized chess set with a few extra pieces for that, I think that would be fun. I would like for that second question, I think that is the Discworld game that I would like to see.
That sounds like fun, yeah.
I do know that someone on Reddit, like a fan artist, has been working on a set of Karok cards, like the Discworld equivalent of tarot cards, which look amazing. I'll have to, someone posted this on one of the social medias. Thank you for whoever pointed that our way, because I had seen it before, but not for a long time, and they've done an update. And they made the point that they're putting a lot of the characters from the books onto the cards, whereas previously in the original version, it was a bit more generic, felt like it could come from the Discworld. And they said, I preferred that, like it was an in-world artifact. And I kind of agree a little bit. Like I think I would love to see that. And I think like a set of Karok cards and maybe some sort of rules for how you could play a game with them, that would also be really nice. That's what I would think. How about you? Are there any others you can think of?
Like actual games from the world.
No,
I can't think of anything that really jumps out at me apart from like Thud.
Thud's kind of the big one, isn't it?
But have we got scenarios or ideas or things that would make a good board game? Do you think?
What else could we turn into a board game from the Discworld? Yeah, you got one, Liz?
Yeah, well, I don't have a clear concept, but I've got vibes that I decided to send out there.
Hit us. Vibes.
Yeah, so like a Moist Von Lipwig themed one, but there's lying and bluffing element to it, kind of like Bullshit, the card game, but also with some poker elements. So something where it's not just the mechanics, it's not so much a board game, but you have to rely on like trying to psychologically guess who's telling the truth and who's not, kind of thing.
More a party game kind of style. Yeah, okay. I get where you're coming from. I think
I enjoy those sort of games quite a lot. Like sizing someone up across the table and going, no, you just keep talking. I'm trying to figure you out.
Yeah.
As they try and maneuver themselves into a winning position. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, I think I'd enjoy that. I think so. I don't know how exactly it would look, but taking on those elements of those games, like like the one where you place down the card and you say, I've got 3 5s or whatnot. And you have to be like, do they? And you also have a way of checking because you've got your own deck of hands like that.
Yeah.
deck of cards, like deck of hands.
Deck of hands.
A deck of hands. But yeah, so it's moist themed, but you have to size up players across the table to sort of be able to win or do well.
Yeah. Okay. How about you, Richard?
Well, I think I'm going to jump on Liz's idea. I think that's great. That's the sort of stuff that I think I'm better at in gaming wise. The games where you've got to talk to the other players around the table.
Yeah.
Whereas if you've just playing a set of cards in your hand, sure, you can try and figure out what people are doing while they play their turn. But I'd much rather try and, get it out of them, by trying to trip them up or, call bullshit. I mean, that's always like you were talking about Werewolf before. I never really played the card game version of it, but I have done a lot of festivals where Werewolf has been a game played on stage.
Yeah.
And that's the best fun.
Yeah, it is
just
good
like
fun.
taking a character, and just really ramping it up and making yourself so lovable or so hated. And so they go, well, he couldn't be the werewolf because he's so nice. Or he goes, surely he couldn't be the werewolf because he's being a dick.
Yeah.
Like, why would you actively make people hate you and stuff to get voted out? So he's like, so obviously he's playing the other way around. And yeah, I like that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. I was thinking, look, I think one of the things I always want out of games like this is I don't just want to retell something that happened in the books. Like the books are there. I don't need that story to be retold to me. So I like a game that kind of creates a new story through the gameplay. And I think something, it wouldn't have to be pandemic based, but something a little bit like what I was describing for Pandemic, where there's some new or random elements that come into a game where you have to figure out a scenario where you have elements of Discworld stuff that comes together in an unpredictable way to create like a fun kind of scenario. I think it would be quite difficult to balance, and you'd probably start with something quite tight, and it probably would be, based around Ankh-Morpork or a specific location. Then you could always sort of expand it into other areas if it was a success. But I think something like that, and maybe what I'm talking about is I just want there to be a good role-playing game, and hopefully the new one is good. But I kind of like that. And I think if you want to capture what makes the Discworld great, you need a bit of that narrative oomph.
Yes.
Definitely. I think if there's anything missing from the games that we have played, is that at the end of them, you can't really sit there and tell a story about what happened.
Right.
Like there will be moments where you go, it was so funny when this happened, and you have a great time playing them. And that's partly what board games are about. But none of them are really designed so that at the end of it, you go, wow, that was so cool. How when the wizards came out and then, that whole part of the map became flooded with magic and there were too many demons because the wizards were too powerful. And then we had to change the board around and like we had to go and recruit witches because they were the only ones who could get the wizards under control. Like there's nothing like that in the games that we have currently for Discworld. And I think trying to come up with something like that, that's quite a modern concept in some ways in board games. I mean, there have been board games that have tried to do heavy narrative for a long time, but a lot of them have relied on, books with passages and you read out big chunks of text. There's nothing wrong with that. Some of those games are great, but I think there's more modern games that attempt this to greater or lesser success. Oath being a modern example that a listener of this podcast has tried to adapt into their own fan Discworld adaptation of it. But it's that kind of game, I think, is what I would be looking for. Yeah.
Cool. The only thing I was just thinking, like, popped into my head, I don't know why, if they were going to sell the IP of Discworld to an already existing game, I don't want it to be Monopoly. I would play the hell out of this version's Cluedo.
Oh, yeah.
That would be great.
That could be fun.
And like maybe oomph it up a bit. So like, make the thing just ridiculous and silly and maybe have like, huge deaths. And yeah, I'd play Cluedo version of this.
Discworld Cluedo.
Discworld Cluedo.
Set in the Patrician's Palace, perhaps.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Lots of secret passages there. That's perfect.
And every death would be by trap.
Oh, you know.
Big hole.
Maybe. Well, that's if the patrician did it.
Yeah.
You pushed him into a hole. Pushed him into the scorpion pit.
Yeah. The
different
game
types of
ends the
pits,
same
though.
way every day. Patrician with the big hole in the.
But he was nowhere nearby.
He was nowhere near.
Well, look, I think that's all the questions. So I think that brings us to the end of the episode. Richard, thank you so much for joining us. If people want to find out where you're putting on quiz nights and
Yes.
come to one of your trivia nights in Melbourne, where is the easiest place for them to find out where you're doing it? Is there a central place, or do they just need to go to the right pub at the right
They
time?
need to go to the right pub at the right time because my social media presence is terrible. That's all right. No, it's not terrible.
But
I'm
your,
there, just like I just
your
said.
presence in the pub running trivia nights is excellent.
Yeah, I'm very good at what I do.
So do you want to quickly give us a quick rundown of, as of July 2025, when we're recording this, where are you doing trivia nights in Melbourne?
Every Wednesday night in Paran at the College Lawn, and every Thursday night and Sunday afternoon at the the Cornish Arms. I almost forgot the place that I've been working for 12 years.
It's been a long day.
It's been a long-
It's a great place. We've played Magic the Gathering there.
We have.
I've done
yes.
trivia there.
Yeah,
There you go. Have a great vegan menu.
they do, and excellent steaks, which I like to point out to the vegans who go there. Great, no, it's right. It's it. I eat the vegan stuff there as well. It's great.
It is
really
great.
is really really
But
good.
they do both. They do
a
both. It's
good
true.
Steak.
Yeah.
They do a bit of both. It's great. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. It was a real delight having you on the show. Before we finish, we run out of Discworld stuff to talk about.
Yeah, how much more stuff have you got to go?
Well, I mean, look,
Handful of books.
there's only, not many things. I mean, for example, in our next episode, Liz, our plan is to discuss not one but two books, because that doesn't seem like we really probably need a whole episode for each of them, because we're looking at a couple of companion volumes that are not novels but are about the Discworld in different ways. So one of them we've already kind of talked about on the show, which is Tiffany Aching's Guide to Being a Witch, which is a book all about Tiffany Aching's journey to being a witch, written by Rhianna Pratchett and Gabrielle Kent. We did an interview with them when it first came out, which was a real delight, but we haven't actually delved into and talked about the book. But because we've talked about it a little bit, we probably don't need a whole episode. But the other one is a new book that hasn't been around that long called Designing Discworld, which is Paul Kidby's book about drawing all of the characters
Right.
for Terry Pratchett. And
That'd be great.
that's what we're hoping to talk about in our next episode. So
And then when all the books are done, you're just going to move into some fan fiction and get watching some characters get shipped together.
no, that was not our plan. I mean, we don't quite have
Why
a
have I been
plan
writing
yet.
all this fan fiction then?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
man, come on.
I don't know. I didn't tell you to do it. But we do still have two novels left. But we're trying to space them out because, we've got three novels left. If we include the one on Discworld one we haven't really properly talked about yet, which is his very first one, The Carpet People. So we still got three novels left, and there's still a couple of other little extra things that we want to talk about. So we still got a little ways to go, but we are getting pretty close to the end.
Fan fiction, Ben.
No, I don't wanna
Don't fight me on this.
I know.
I'll come back for that one.
How will we even choose?
I will
We
write
could do
some
one
stuff.
episode about fan fiction.
Yeah, I'm sure there's like.
I'll write some
I'd love
stuff.
to read
You'll
some.
write some?
Oh yeah, I got time.
Okay, we could do that.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, listener, if you would like to hear us do an episode about fan fiction, including Richard's fan fiction that he has just promised to write if we do the episode, please let us know. But if you've got questions about either Tiffany Aching's Guide to Being a Witch or Designing Discworld, you can send those in to us. You can send them via email to chat@pratchatpodcast.com, or you can send them to us on social media using the hashtag for our next episode, which is PratChat88.
Very auspicious.
Thanks for joining us for this episode as we wrap up. This was the final of the board games. We've now discussed all 5 of the Discworld board games.
And now, like Voltron, you'll join together and become more
Become
powerful.
the ultimate
than the sum of
Discworld
your
board
parts.
game. I don't know if you could join them together. Like, there's 2 that are set in Ankh-Morpork and they're quite different. So,
You can if you put your mind to it.
but look, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to all of our supporters who make it possible for us to make the podcast.
And I just want to take this opportunity to say hello to Kath, who I bumped into after we went to a Theremin concert that we didn't realize we were both there at. So that was very cool. Nice to see you, Kath.
You really do make this show go. Like, without you, there is no show. It means we don't have to sell ads, which no one would want to buy from us anyway. Let's be honest. But it does mean we can make the show the way we want to make it and hopefully the way that you enjoy it. So thank you very much. If you'd like to support us, you can find out more about that on our website. But until next time, may you always roll higher than a 7. You've been listening to Pratchat, the monthly Terry Pratchett Book Club podcast with Pratchatters Elizabeth Flux, Ben McKenzie, that's me, and guest Richard McKenzie. Pratchat is produced and edited by me on the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung peoples of the Kulin Nation. Our music is by David Ashton. We're on social media as Pratchat or Pratchat Podcast, and you can listen to past episodes and support the production of new ones via pratchatpodcast.com. Join the conversation for this episode using the hashtag Pratchat87.
Pratchat is brought to you by Splendid Chaps Productions. We make entertainment for your ears, like the Doctor Who podcast Splendid Chaps and time travel comedy series Night Terrace. To find out more, visit splendidchaps.com.
Do you know the deluxe version of the game, the dice doesn't have an 8 on it? It's got 7A.
That's good.
What?
Because the 8 is the forbidden
Octa,
number.
Yeah.
Oh, of course.